Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MADlife, episode 13. I'm really excited because I have Radika and Shyam here. I met them about 7 years ago when Kyler and I took a trip to India, and we were working with a nonprofit organization called Effect.org, and they actually go to India and help build schools. And we raised a lot of money for that and helped build schools there, and it was really cool. And so we met you guys there because you were part of it, right?
Yeah, I was the one who was looking after all the operations in India. So, starting the schools from the scratch, recruiting people, that's what I was looking after.
That's really cool. And then I met Radika there too. And at the time, her son was just a baby and same age almost as the twins, were just about a year older than them. So I just thought it was so fun. And now they're here, living here right by us. And so we'll get to see each other all the time. And her son is like best friends with our girls and Oliver. And it's really cute to see. But I have them on the podcast today because they are also helping with so many amazing things that we want to talk about today. On my last podcast you guys saw, I opened up about my story of what happened to me as a kid. And this doesn't just happen to kids. This happens to adults all the time, sex abuse. And there's so many types of things that, are happening like this around the world. It's happened in India. It happens everywhere. It happens here in the US, even in the state you're in. They say California is one of the states that happens most in. And I recently saw this movie called Sound of Freedom, and it talks exactly like that, brings awareness. And I think the first step to help everybody, because I was thinking after my last podcast, how can I help stop this from happening? And sometimes I feel hopeless. Like, how can I stop something? Like, I'm just a single person, but raising awareness to everybody is the first step, because then everybody's thinking about it. And then we're more aware, which means we can stop it if we see something happening. And you guys should definitely watch that movie, Sound of Freedom. It is such a good film. And they are helping now. They just recently got back from India, and they were helping a lot of survivors.
Yeah. India and Nepal.
Oh, India and Nepal. Oh, yeah. They were helping survivors of sex trafficking. And I kind of wanted you guys to share that experience and kind of how you got involved with that, because it's so cool.
Yeah. You said it right. It's awareness is the key. A lot of time people ask me, how did you get involved? And I feel like I have a really disappointing story or a disappointing answer for them, because nothing crazy happened. Nobody was kidnapped in my family, or, I wasn't kidnapped. It's just the awareness. And in 2015, there was an earthquake in Nepal, a really big earthquake. And and I remember my former business partner, him, Casey.
Yes.
He got there, with his crew, trying to arrange all the volunteer help efforts. And as I was talking to him, we learned that a lot of girls went missing during that earthquake, because even these prisons and jails were, collapsed. So these people got free, and a lot of girls went missing.
Wow.
So as we tried to dig deeper into that, what was the cause? What was the reason? And of course, we can't put an end to a demand. So me and Casey were like, let's just start schools. So that's how I got involved into schools.
Okay.
But there is actually more where I got really committed to this cause. And maybe we can talk more about it, as we talk. But yeah,
schools were cool because they actually helped. Because in India, isn't there something where kids in the slums, like, they can't go to school or something? Does it cost money to go to school there? Like, what is the reason why a lot of them aren't getting education?
We do have public schools, but the population is more. There are more kids, and then public schools are becoming better now, but it wasn't really good there. I remember my parents didn't want me to go to a public school. Why?
Wow.
Because there were like 100 kids in one class.
Oh my goodness.
And there were schools that didn't have table and chair.
Wow. So that's why we were building
schools? I went to the school where I would sit on the ground.
Oh my
we didn't have
gosh.
furniture.
So what these guys were doing were they were coming up with affordable schools for underprivileged kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
So schools that were nice, that you can get a good education.
If you really try to understand the education, in developing countries, not just in India, there are private schools like for these people who's got a lot of money and they can afford to send their children. And there are these government schools where, there's a lot of improvement is needed. But if you look at the population of people, not everybody's like lower class, like or poor class, and not everybody's the high class. So there's a lot of people in between, and these people, they understand the importance of education. They can't afford these expensive schools, but they also don't want to send their children to the school where there's not
That
furniture,
makes
right?
sense.
So
Yeah.
that's how, there are a lot of schools. There are actually more than 300,000 budget schools in India, and that's what me and Casey tried doing along with other team members. And so we opened these schools where we would charge less than $10 a month,
Yes.
and we had people from US to help us train our curriculums. Even in India, we ended up teaming up with and recruiting people that were really smart. So we built our whole curriculum. So that's how we got involved into schools.
That's
And
amazing. Yeah, it makes you take our school for granted because a lot of people are so upset with the school system here too, which is why people are pulling their kids out and trying to put them in private schools because they're upset with, controlling certain curriculums that they don't want their kids to teach. But overall, our schools here are pretty good. Like we have it pretty good. The education is top priority, I think, for a lot of schools.
yeah, and like when you try to learn more about human trafficking, you realize that it's the education, lack of money, desire of having a better life. That's what gets people trafficked.
I didn't think about that because I hear a lot of people that gets trafficked are people who are in like a situation where it's like easier for them, I don't know, to get trafficked in a way.
It's poverty, right? I remember when I used to work in Nepal, with all these nonprofits that are working to combat human trafficking. I heard of a story where there was a girl who was trafficked from Nepal by giving a bus ticket. She wasn't educated. If she was educated, she would have known that in order to get to, she was promised that we're taking you to Dubai on a bus. If she was educated, she would have known that she would either need to get on a plane or a ship, right? She can't just travel on a bus to Dubai, but she got trafficked.
Yeah.
So
Just
education,
being unaware.
yeah, and
That's what we were scared of in the movie, because in the movie, if you guys have seen The Sound of Freedom, the dad, his daughter wanted to sing, and it's based on a true story. And this girl comes over and just says she has a beautiful voice. Do you want her to come? I'm taking pictures. We're doing like a modeling thing to submit to big like agencies for her singing. And he's like, yeah. So he's like, okay, drop her off and come pick her up in a couple hours. Drops her daughter off. He comes back in a couple hours. The whole room's gone. The whole building's gone. Empty. He starts running down the streets. I literally was like, oh my gosh, I can't think of anything worse. And instantly me and Kylie were like, we're not letting our kids go anywhere anymore. So for a couple of weeks, we were like so scared, because when you see the reality and how quickly they take those kids and transfer them into trucks and then transfer them into another truck and they're gone instantly, there is no way to track. When you see that, you're like, oh my gosh, it just takes a second. And yeah, so there's also the situation, like you're saying, where they're uneducated and they're in poverty. And like in this case, it wasn't that. Like the dad, it seemed like he was well off and had like a great thing going, but he just trusted the wrong person. So there's that side of it too.
Human trafficking is vast. It's not just about, I just recently spoke to a bunch of students at BYU Idaho. And when I asked them questions, what do you think of human trafficking? What comes to your mind? And people were like, yeah, the picture, what we imagine is like somebody's walking on the street, being grabbed and thrown into a van and thrown into brothels. But yeah, of course that happens. But if you really try to look into the issue, it's not always the case. It's usually by the people that your family members, your friends, your neighbors. They're the one. And then I think it's so big that people really need to, I think, understand that human trafficking is not just where all of a sudden you find yourself sitting in a brothel. It's what's happening in day-to-day life, how people are treating you, how your children are being treated, or like
because even with workforce, I hear it's kind of like a trafficking thing. They'll take people and have them work in a certain way that's unethical, and even if it's not like a sexual thing, it's like an unethical way of like treating humans. And I think that's also considered
that's a part of
trafficking.
And that's what the U.S. government primarily considers. Like if they have, the way they define human trafficking is like, one is commercial sex, the other one is forced labor.
Okay,
People are brought to work here and they agree on certain terms and conditions, but then everything is being violated there. They're into an abusive environment. But you talked about fear, after watching that movie, and for me, I recently heard a podcast where this guy talks about when he sets a goal, he has three things in, he has three things in his mind. He says, like, I look at the information that I'm receiving, and based on that information, how am I feeling? What are my emotions? And then what action will I take based on the information and emotion?
So my emotion was fear.
Your
So
emotion
what
is
am I
fear.
gonna do?
Exactly,
A podcast.
But this is great because, like, as I said,
Yeah.
I wasn't trafficked, nobody in my family was trafficked, but it was the awareness that really
Yes.
got me to do what I'm doing today. And so first, that piece of information was the awareness for me when I learned about the issue. And later, something that really made, I did experience the emotion, and that emotion was fear.
Yeah.
Weathereffect.org, I was involved into this documentary that Effect produced. It's called Stolen Innocence, and it's a story about what happens in India and Nepal, with human trafficking, and we rescued about 5 girls. And
Wow.
where these girls were rescued, I mean, you have to watch this.
Really?
Yeah, you have to watch this documentary. These girls were like, I don't know how they even got them, but like, they were behind the walls. Like there was a little shallow thing,
Oh my god.
and then
They were bad inside the buildings.
yeah.
And they were like brick walls, fake walls.
Like fake walls, and they were in
But actual
behind
brick
them.
walls, they were like broken. They broke the brick wall. They made a hole in the wall, and they shoved those girls inside. I don't know how.
Oh my
I
goodness.
remember watching that, and the girls were not in good conditions. The path that they made for them to store them, they were like ants, cockroaches, and no
Oh my
light for them.
gosh.
I don't know how they were breathing.
This is the saddest thing. It's so sad to think that this is the kind of stuff that's happening, right now, today, everywhere. And when I think what made me so fearful was that I think we think it's like always in these faraway places because we're not aware that it's happening right here. And I think what made me so scared is after we watched the movie, we actually got a Q&A with some of the first responders and people who've been involved in the movie, and and they said that they are the ones that get called about trafficking things here in Utah, and that they go and they're the ones that go and save the people. And they said this happens in Utah all the time, happens in California all the time.
No place or no
Idaho.
nation is,
Yeah.
um,
And so I was looking around like, okay, it's happening everywhere. Where? Like, where's it going to happen? Because I've never seen it.
yeah. And I mean,
So I got scared.
your last episode where you talked about your experience when you were 11 years old,
Yeah.
all those red flags that you talked about, they are, red flags of people who are traffickers.
Yep.
Everything that
I
happened to
think
you,
it's always when they're trying to lure you in. It's if it's too much, if they're too excited about getting a kid or a person to join something or come back over here. It almost happened to us when we were in Cancun. This guy was so into getting us into his restaurant, it was creepy, and we both had a bad feeling about it. It happened, the same thing with my neighbor. It was like, let me buy you gifts, let me get this, We had this other person that we always thought that we felt bad about in our life, and that person was always like so obsessive with the kids and stuff, and so we were like, sorry, you can't. You can tell though if it's like true love, like genuine, or if it's something off. Usually, hopefully, you can tell, because I think some people can't tell, which is why this is happening.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand that human trafficking has stages. It just doesn't happen that I see her and I grab her hand and take her away, right? First step is the luring. They start assessing your vulnerabilities. Are you the right fit for them? What are you going through? They really try to read you. And then, the next stage come. I remember Kyler talking about in your episode about grooming. They start grooming you, Then there is exploitation. There is, and then I heard I think there are five stages. And the last one is where the person who's been a victim, they use them as to recruit other people.
Wow.
To make them feel like now you are part of the team. Now you don't have to deal with more clients, Let's bring your friends. Let's bring your network,
Yes.
Tell them how good your life
that's
is.
what was happening with the Epstein thing. Did you guys ever watch the Epstein documentary? It's on I think Netflix or something, but he would first get one girl who needed money, right? Just give him a massage or whatever. Then it ended up into this like trafficking thing where she would then get her friend if she got her friend, she would get paid more money. And they were always broken people, like people that like desperate, needed something in their life, didn't feel whole, so they go and do this, and then they get sucked in, and then they get their friend involved. And then every single time I would hear these victims talk about their story, it was all the same story, that they would get all their friends involved, and then they didn't know why, and then they were stuck. And I think they can tell people who would be the perfect victim for that.
And it's easy, right? Like, let's say if I'm one of those victims, right? I got trafficked, and now after going through all the torture and everything, if my trafficker tells me, you're on the team, let's get more people, I'm gonna feel okay. I've already lost everything, so let me just work with them, and it'll be a lot easier for me to come to my friends, people that I know, and say, hey, there's good life. I'm making a lot of money. Why don't you come? So it becomes easier. But going back to that fear, when I got involved into that documentary, and where these girls were rescued from, Radhika actually used to. She used to work for a bank. And she had to take the same street every morning, every evening. Her office was like 2 miles ahead from these brothels. And she would go on these rickshaws, cycle rickshaws.
Okay.
In India.
You rode it like a little motorcycle?
No, it's actually just a bicycle. It's a bicycle,
okay.
but there has a, basically seat for you to sit. And these rickshaw pullers are often the pimps. They are the one who's taking customers all the time to these brothels.
Wow.
And you've been to India, you've seen how many people are there.
Well, yes, and I even see little kids coming up to your windows, and
so
it seems like it's a whole thing there.
Yeah.
It'd be scary. A business, yeah.
And my fear was, so I used to go drop Radhika every morning, and we'll pick her up in the evening. And you know how many people are there? Like Delhi alone has 23 million people. So if somebody is getting into a physical fight there, or somebody is being harassed, nobody really cares, because one, nobody wants to get into trouble. They think, I don't know what we're gonna get there, right? So I used to be so scared. What if one day somebody comes and drag? Because there were days
You go to pick her up and she's not there.
There were days when I could not go and drop her because I was also working. So I used to be so scared. What if that happened? So that fear really made me more committed, and I think that fear turned into more aggression and anxiety when we had our first son, our son Oliver. And
I feel like here, like if you can call 911 and get help. Like I've heard in other countries, like they're not as into trying to solve like the mystery. Like here, I feel like if someone gets kidnapped, they're gonna go after and find them. But I watched I don't know what it was, some Indian movie where, I don't know, like the kids get taken, and like, or all those kids on the streets that were coming up to our window. Kyle and I wanted to bring them all home and adopt them, because we were thinking, like, where are their parents? Are people actively searching for them? Are they going through clues, figuring out when they disappeared, finding them, returning them to their families? But then when I talked to you about the survivors, I remember you mentioning something about how the families there will not accept them back.
Yeah, so when we went to Nepal this year,
Oh, not in India, in Nepal. I keep saying India.
but it's the
the culture is very similar.
It's similar, yeah. So we went to this house where there were like little girls, I would say. They were all under 16. And there were
girls like as young as Oliver.
There was
Oh my
there were
gosh, no
girls
way.
We gotta show you the
as
pictures.
young as 5-year-old. And my heart would ache. And
Just want to bring him home.
yeah, and why would they get abandoned? But then I learned that because they were abused, their family didn't want them anymore because they were ashamed.
Oh my goodness.
Can you just imagine that?
No.
The time when they need the most love, that's where they're abandoned from.
So their parents know that they were found, and then they're
Yeah.
just...
And most of the time, it's the family who finds them and they just abandon them. They're like, we can't have you because you'll bring shame to our family.
That is so crazy. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, because that must be some type of culture, or I don't
It's the cultural
understand.
thing, like, I mean, a lot of people think that, like, I think the amount of shame a woman can bring into families is that there's no comparison, because they're girls or they're women. So I think when we were trying to raise funds and you were helping us, rescue, when we hear the word rescue, it feels like, someone has been restored to their families.
Yeah.
But here in these cultures, rescue just simply means that you were brought from one place and have been put into another place where you don't have anybody to really talk to.
So what is their plan from there? What were they trying? Where are they trying to go?
So these organizations, they try to help them get educated. Like they send them to school. They try to keep them safe, because once they're abused and they've been rescued, they are more prone to that area, because sometimes they just want to go there because they feel like that's where they're wanted more than in the normal world.
Okay.
So yeah.
And they also haven't learned any skills, right? When they are in those brothels, they don't really get to learn any skills.
Yeah, they
So
don't teach them anything.
when they
So
come
they're
back to real life, their family is not accepting them. Society doesn't want them, right? Everybody's looking at them as an object. So they're like, they often tend to go back like, okay, at least I was making something there.
so sad that they think that that's their worth now.
Yeah.
Because they don't know where to go. So did you guys, I wonder, I don't know if you guys do this or if there's an organization that can help, them, give them like a type of home, or like they go and get education through this, or what?
So the
Feel like they have a
organization,
family?
yeah, so the organization that we work with, they have shelter homes or shelter houses. So they keep all these girls there. They stay there, and they look after their schooling. They help them to even get married when, their age is appropriate, and really try to push them into just out in the world and normal life. So there are a lot of organizations that are doing, and I'm sure there are a lot of, aftercare that happens here in the US as well. But, I think I'm really trying to make connection to that information, emotion, and action part. When Oliver was born, and I have been involved into these expeditions, where I would see these young children, it just, it made me feel like all of a sudden, those people, became real people to me. Like when you hear about the statistics, like if I were to pull out the statistics, you would be like, wow, there are like 27 million people are victim at any given time.
Yeah.
But when we learn about those statistics, we feel bad, but we don't really understand what's behind them, right? But when you have your own children, you don't see them as merely a body of flesh and bone. You see through their body and you see the souls. And that's where I got like, their souls, because I have a son, and, more than how he looks outside, I'm more interested into what he's inside.
They're so innocent and sweet, and they have so many goals for life, and they're just full of life. And so, it's very, very like heartbreaking. That movie was one of the hardest things I've ever seen. I was crying the whole time because it brings you into reality just for a second, and after you can't unsee it.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. When you said that, it's like I can't imagine anyone in the world where they've gone through something so drastically big in their life, and yet they're not loved.
No. That's what the part that was so hard to hear when you guys came back from this trip was that they were just unwelcomed somewhere. And I don't know, I just wanted them all to just come move in with me or something.
I know.
That's what she felt. She wanted to bring them home.
I was like, I don't know if I helped them at all by being there. It was just monetary help, but they helped me a lot to understand. I mean, I'm blessed.
Yeah.
To give love and receive love. And
what did any of them talk to you like about what their plans were, what their experience was, or like that they're happy where they're at now?
We don't talk to them about the experiences.
Yeah, but
talk about where they're going now.
Yeah, there were girls who were a little older ones, like 16 or something. They were in high schools, and there was one girl who wanted to become a designer.
I love that.
There was one girl who wanted to become a doctor. I'm still in touch with them. They almost just messaged me out.
You're in touch
random,
with them? That's so cute.
And it's like, I remember when I hugged them, all they said was, thank you for hugging us. Thank you for coming and seeing us. We, the day we were leaving after spending 3 or 4 days with them, I was like, what can I do? What will make them happy? And I really like food and music, so
I think everybody can connect with that.
Yes, so I was like, let's get like cake and stuff, and let's turn on music. We had a little party
for them.
And Maddie, I've never seen people so happy. They were just happy with those little things.
They're just happy to exist and be there and for their journey, you know?
I didn't see one of them cry. I didn't want to cry there, but I couldn't hold myself. I mean, they were pure souls.
Well, you know what? I think that going through something like that is very, very intense and tough, you know, and I think that those kind of souls have to be super strong. Like,
Yeah.
I think that I believe that, you know, we all have a purpose here on earth, and we kind of know what we're going to go through, and God puts us through things for certain reasons and doesn't put anything that we can't handle. Those people must be a very special soul that they have to go through that in their lifetime. Like, I just can't even imagine.
Yeah, they're stronger than us.
Yeah, they
The
are.
spirit is so strong. How much time do we have?
I think we're almost done. So I just want to wrap it up. Like, I'm so glad, like, to know somebody like you guys who are changing the world. Like, we need more people to do this kinds of things. And it was really cool for Kyler and I to go to India. Like, I've been wanting to go back, but I've been having so many kids every year, which is great. But like, I've been wanting to do more service projects for sure, and just help people around the world.
Yeah. Thank you, you know, for the opportunity to let us talk. And I just want to, since we're wrapping up, I just want to say that awareness is the key. And it starts from, you know, us. A lot of time, I think we as parents, we don't talk to our children. We don't really make them feel like when they have somebody like that in their life, or if they're being exposed to things such as porn, because porn is connected to human trafficking.
Yes.
There's an organization, I think they're called Exodus. They basically went to every brothel, and, you know, they started talking to these buyers who were buying sex. And one common thing they found in them, that they have all been addicted to porn.
Oh,
You know?
yeah. I've heard this. I think this is the End of Sound of Freedom too. Something
Yeah.
like this. It's all connected to that.
It's always connected.
I was listening to this guy, his name is Satya Sam. They have a company where they help people overcome porn addiction. And he says it's not a question of if your children will get exposed to porn, but it's a question of when they will get exposed, because
Wow.
they will,
Because
right?
it's just everywhere now.
It is happening, right?
Yeah.
So when that happens, are they comfortable enough to come and talk to you?
Yeah.
Or are they going to be scared that, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble?
That's
right?
so true. We have to create a very a thing in our home that makes them feel safe and be able to communicate openly.
That's true.
Because traffickers creates that. I mean, listening to your last episode, you can talk to your parents for 2 years.
Yeah, I didn't, because
Right?
I felt so awkward to talk to them about it. Because we didn't talk about a lot of hard things in our house. At least I don't think we did. Or at that age, you don't talk about a lot of hard things because you're playing dolls all day, and like, you don't know what to talk about. You know, when something like that's happening, you don't get it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. you
No,
know,
I love
but
this.
you can stop. You know. I also was reading an article. I think this is important because a lot of us are just exposed to things that we shouldn't be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going to happen to our children. There's a research that when you're tempted to consume porn, you have a very small window of before you can do something about it.
Wow.
But if I were to ask you guys, what do you think that window of time is?
I've read about it.
2
so I know.
minutes.
3 seconds.
It's 3 seconds.
Really?
So you just can't go.
So as soon as you think about it, 3 seconds and not.
So this guy says that you have to, you know, be predetermined. What are you going to do when you are tempted? You know, and if you haven't thought about it, you know, it develops into something bigger.
That's why that's where God comes in, because you got to fill your day with spiritual things.
Yeah.
Happy thoughts. Your kids will see you fill your day with spiritual things. And I think boredom sometimes could lead to that for kids. Or they're not in any activities, or not a lot of, I don't know, things with friends. I don't know what can cause a kid to want to do that more, but, or adults even, you know. I think that's the first thing. Like, thanks for drawing on that, because that's very important. We need to make sure that our kids be able to communicate with us with that.
Yeah.
And I heard also that people that look at porn also sometimes are murderers. Like, what Kyler was saying, like, they interviewed a bunch of murderers, and they said that they all were in like the prison, right? And that all the common thing for every single one of them was that it's how it started was porn. So it's not just like traffickers and pedophiles. It's like they can turn into very many crazy things. So, wow, this is a great topic. I mean, it's a sad topic, but it's much needed, because I like to talk about hard things sometimes, so that can raise awareness. Thank you guys for coming on here.
Yeah, one last thing though, we're still putting efforts and doing things to, you know, create awareness through an organization called LifeSpark International. that Radhika
Okay.
and I are still, putting efforts. And whenever we find time from our school and from family.
You're gonna do more trips and
Yeah.
things. Okay, so guys, look up Life Spark. I want to go with you guys sometime. That'd be so fun. Let us know if you guys are interested to come on one of these trips. Thank you guys so much. You're the best, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Goodbye.